two situations. All right. Oh, do me a favor. Maybe make me hot water and lemon. Yeah, thank you.
Want some salt and marrow?
No, just hot water and lemon.
Else?
No. Gute Woche. I hope
Gute Woche, Rabbi.
Okay, good. All right, we got a little bit of short one on Friday. We're gonna make it up now. It's a show. All right, here we go. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Shabbos Daf Nun Dalid. We are going to continue to explain the Mishnah that we had on Daf Nun Beis Amid Beis, all of the different accessories that commonly were used on animals. The question is whether they are allowed to go out with them in the Rishus Harabim. And as we are learning the sugya, that not only am I not allowed to break malachos on Shabbos, including carrying, but the concept of shvisas, there's a concept known as shvisas behemtoi, which means that my animals cannot do something which is halachically considered a burden for them. They can't break the Shabbos, including carrying a burden. Now, truth be told, there are many items, as we have been learning, that even if an animal is going out with it in the Rishus Harabim, it's called a garment of an animal, or if it's on the animal to enable the person to lead the animal, to restrain the animal, that's not prohibited. But we're going through various details of rams and ewes, etc. We're going to learn the three-way machloikas we had in the Mishnah regarding whether an animal can go out b'reshus harabim with a patch tied to the animal's udder. And as we have been learning, sometimes something is tied there. You tie the udders in order to dry out the milk. Then there is tying the udders or putting a patch on the udders to collect the milk. Either three-way machloikas, either it's always permitted, always prohibited, or only permitted if it's liyabesh, not lecholiv, as we'll be learning in greater detail. We're going to be learning the definition of akud, whether an animal can go out bound. The question again is the ropes or the chains that bind the animal, is it considered a burden? and thus usher or not. We're going to be learning at the end of Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph a very important klal, an approach that a Rav needs to have when he paskins a din, that in certain areas he has to be machmer a little bit if he knows that people are going to take the heter more or less to the way the Rav is saying it, and many times people are going to go a little bit over the limit. So if you put the boundary a little bit further, even if people go a little bit beyond what they're heard, what the Rav is saying is mutter, they're still going to be within the real parameter of halacha, and we'll give the example in the case on Daf Nun Daled. We're going to be learning the famous story of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah that was extremely wealthy, how he used to tithe. His Meiser Behema was 12,000 calves a year. That means every year in his herd, there came a new 120,000. This is just cattle. And we're going to learn a Tosfos about Meiser Behema. We learned just together, Chavra and Bechayres, that after the Churban Beis Hamikdash, the Chazal made a takana not to give Meiser Behema. And we know that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was max 15 years old when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. And we're going to see how this plays into this event. And God willing, if we'll have time, we're going to start at the end of today's shiur, the sugya of the importance of protesting against another Jew who is transgressing. And we're going to learn the nuances that if you know for sure that they won't abide, they won't listen, then better not to tell them anything. But if you have even a doubt that if you'll protest the way we should, coming from the heart, framing it in a positive way, whatever works. But if there's even a doubt that your words will have an impact, then not doing your part of making a protest is considered a severe failing on behalf of the leadership. And this sugya is going to go into Daf Nun Hey. We're going to be learning a lot of Agadata also on Daf Nun Vav. We're going to end this Perek with a lot of Agadata. We left off a little bit before the end of the Amud on Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis. We are 13 lines before the bottom of the Amud by the two dots, Tanu Rabbanan. And we just spoke about a story of a miracle that God performed to a certain individual. And we're going to learn now about another story, and I'm going to give a suggestion as to why is this after that. So Tanu Rabbanan, 13 lines before the bottom of the Amud. The story happened with a person. Shenasa Isha Gidemis, that he married a woman whose hand was cut off. However, he never knew it. The husband never realized it. Whether it means until the final day of her life, or whether it means mamash until she passed away, he didn't notice it. So Amar Rav, or the Messiah Sashas amends, Amar Rebbe, come and see, look how modest this woman is, that she was so modest that her husband never noticed that she's missing a hand. So Amar Loi Reb Chia tells Rebbe, no, the merit is not hers. The greatness is not hers. The greatness is his. That Zu, a woman, to cover up a blemish, that's usual. Darka bakach. But Ella Kamot Tanua Adam Zeh, how great is this man? That he never saw the flaw in his wife. And perhaps this is the same man. Why was the man in the story that we left off in the last year? Why did he merit that God made as a gavaldik nes for him, that he was able to nurse his own child, like we have by Mordechay, as we read the Bereshis Rabbah, the Midrash? Maybe because of the merit of him being a man who never saw a fault in his wife, he was zoicha that when his wife passed away, that a miracle happened and his child did not pass away from lack of food. All right, just a suggestion. Weiter the two dots, the Gemara is referring back to the Mishnah. Zecharim doesn't mean males, it means male shepsalach. Rams are allowed to go out, but Reshus Rabim levuvim attached. That's the literal type of levuvim, and we shall see what exactly this means, and more importantly, why only male rams are allowed to go levuvim, which taka implies that female lambs may not go out levuvim. What's the difference? We'll see in a moment. All right, my levuvim. So Amar Rav Huna tutrei, pairs, two, one tied with the other. They can go out in pairs. My mashma the high levuvim lishon the krayvuhu. How do you know that the word levuvim means closeness? That's the meaning of two together, two tied together. The chsiv, based on a pasuk, that livav timi archoisi kala, that God says to the Jewish people, you have captured my heart, my sister, my bride. So you see the words livavtini, levuvin means closeness. Another pshat, ula amar, that levuvin refers to a certain type of hide that is put on the underbelly of the male of the rams to protect their hearts. And why were males protected by having an additional patch, an additional piece of garment? So if a wolf is going to attack a ram, and the nature of the wolf is he attacks it by the underbelly, so the ram should be protected. But the problem with the ula is, if that's the pshat of Levuvim, what, wolves only attack males, only attack rams? Se'evim, as a chadim nafli, anakevusli nafli. So the Gemara is, yeah, that the wolves only attack the men, the chevra, not the women, not the ewes. Why? Bishum Damasku B'reish Idra, since the rams go in the front of the herd, that's the nature, so they attack the ones in the front. So the Gemara challenges the premises. V'ze'evim B'reish Udra Nafli, what, wolves only attack those who are in the head of the pack. But the Soif Idra Le Nafli, but if they're hungry and they're coming from behind a herd, and that's where the females are, they're not going to attack them. So the Gemara says, you're right, it's not about being in the front, Ela Mishum Deshamne, because the rams are fatter. And the wolf goes for the fatter piece of meat. Are there no fat ewes? And Vesu Miyadi Ben Hani Lahani. Let's go back to the beginning. He doesn't know. He doesn't recognize male, female. You see a behemoth, you're a wolf, you go and attack. And if he's not fat, he's going to think, maybe there's a fatter one in the pack. It doesn't work that way. Ela Mishum explains the Gemara, no, that wolves attack rams in principle. They don't attack the ewes. Why? Not because they go in the front and not because they are fatter, but the Zakvi Chutmayu, when they walk, they hold their noses up. They walk with Azagaiva, the rams. And not only do they walk with their noses up, but Umasku Ki Davu, they look from side to side. So they walk with an aggressive posture. The wolf thinks that the ram is going to attack the wolf. Because of that, the wolf preempts and he attacks the ram. And that's a teva that only the rams have. And the ewes, right, the rechelois, they walk edel. They don't go with their nose up in the air. They don't look from side to side. Amazing. So they don't antagonize the wolf. So they're not attacked. So they don't need to have these hides put on their underbellies, and if you put it by them, it's called a burden if it's not needed, and that's in violation of Shrisas Behemtik. Nachman Yitzchak Amar, he gives a third opinion. This refers to another accessory that was put on the rams on their genitals, when the balabas doesn't want for his ram to have a relation with the female, with the ewes, because when she's nursing her children, if the Rachel is going to get pregnant, then she might lose her milk. So there are certain times that do the balabas, you don't want them to procreate. And how do I know that this levuvin is in reference to something that's connected to their reproduction? I'll show you how. Because since the Mishnah says weiter, the Mishnah daf nun beis and beis, not the chelis, the chelim, yoitzois shechuzais, they can go out with shechuzais, which means held. And we know my shechuzais. What does that mean? It's a certain type of accessory that would hold their tail up. It's in the same context. In other words, sometimes you wanted them to get mounted. Sometimes you did not want them to have a relation. And the Mishnah speaks about both of them, so it's all about the context of mating. Reisha kadesha leyalu ala nekevos and v'seifa kadesha yalu leim nekevos. Now, my mashma dahai shechuzos means exposed. Lishna de geluyahu. Even though we said before that shechuzos is sha'achuzos, that it's lifted up, but it means to be revealed. This is a pasuk in Mishlei, v'hinei isha lekrasai, that the woman came to meet him, daf nun dalid, and this woman was shis zoina, exposed like a harlot, unatzura slave with a surrounding heart with the thoughts filled with znus, and like Rashi says that shis zoina is no trikon shechuzos. Okay, right. The next thing we learned in the Mishnah is harachelim yoitzois kevulos. They are allowed to go out kavulos. Kavulos means tied. My kavulos. Shemechablim Aliyah shalehem lamata. Here it's fakert, another accessory that would tie their tail down. If the balabas of these rechelim did not want them to be mounted with males, like we spoke out, sometimes they're nursing and the balabas did not want them to get pregnant, etc. My mashma that the word kavul means the loy ovid peruhu. It denotes something that causes non-productivity. There's a city called Kabul, right? Hasu Kabul. As it says, this is a pasuk that after we have Hiram, Melech Tzur, he was very active and helpful to Shlomo HaMelech in the building of the first Beis Hamikdash. Shlomo HaMelech rewarded him by giving him 20 cities. That's a gift. And he wasn't that happy with the gift. And he said regarding these cities, my brother, Shlomo HaMelech, what are these cities? And Vayikra, and the king Hiram called the place that he got as a gift Eretz Kavul, and that is used Adayim Hazeh. What's the meaning of him calling it Eretz Kavul? Amar Afuna, Shahoyu Ba B'nei Adam. Many people lived there. Shemechubalim Ba'Kesav Ubazov, that they were wrapped, that they were tied up with gold and silver. So that's the source that Kavul means tied up. But now that we quoted this pasuk, doesn't make sense. Why would he complain if he was gifted a city that people are wrapped with gold and silver, with golden garments? No, that's a good thing. How do you explain that which it says that he wasn't happy with the gift? If he got, in other words, or because he got a city that people walk around ungeturned, wrapped up, tied up with golden and silver, yeah, that's the reason why he didn't like the gift. Because even the atire, when people are very wealthy, if you are dealing with people that are wearing golden or silver garments, umefanki, they are very finicky people, and they're fagrup, they don't work good. He didn't want such a people. That the word kavul, kavulois, eretz chaimtin haisa, it was a land that was very salty. The earth was salty and cracked. And why is it called? In other words, it's an earth that doesn't produce. That the earth was so salty and so cracked that when you stepped in it, your foot sank in all the way until your knee or until your ankle. Salty and cracked earth. Again, it's connected to non-productivity. Which is why he didn't like the gift. But coming back, kavulis means an accessory that disables or makes it difficult for this animal to become pregnant. And whenever the balabas wants the animal to wear it, you may put it on the animal, and the animal may walk out on Shabbos, and you're not violating shvisas behemtoi. The next thing that the Mishnah said regarding the use, that they can go out kivunois, they could go out with kivunois, my kivunois, shemachabnim oisam lemelos. It's a certain garment, right, that's protected with a covering that's fastened around all of its body in order for its sharing to be used for this fine melas, bright white wool. In other words, when dafka females, when a ewe is born, when a female shepsela is born, her skin, her wool is very white, and the teva is that the mother licks up the body of the child, and it makes it even whiter. And right away, you cover it with this kavunais. It's a certain type of, and what that does is it doesn't allow this wool to ever get dirty. And you leave it on the animal until you're going to share it for the first time. And this is the most expensive wool from which you make garments that's called melas. Whenever you learn in Chazal melas, which is very expensive wool garments, it's because it came from such an animal. As we learned, that when the Torah, last week we read Parsha Shmini, we read right today, right? Tazria, Seis, and the definition, the whiteness of Seis is Ketsemer Lavan, like white wool, and my Tsemer Lavan, Amar Avivi, Barabaya Ketsemer Noki Ben Yoimain, it's wool of a infant lamb, right? That is going to be covered and the covering is going to be properly fastened and bound around the animal in order for the wool, when it grows, to remain as white, and it's going to be used lemelas for this expensive wool material. Now we had in the Mishnah 3 machlokas. There's a concept of goats going out tsururois. Tsururois is they had their udders tied at times. And whenever it was there tying their udders, can you leave it on the animal when it's going outside? The Tanach said, yes. No matter for what reason you put it on, you can leave it. The second Tana in the Mishnah was Rabbi Yossi says never. It's considered a burden. And the third Tana in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda said it depends. If the owner tied it on in order to dry out the milk, that's the Rashi that we learned, that you want the animal to get pregnant, and sometimes because of it, nursing it won't become pregnant. So you want to dry out the milk. That is mutter. It's not called a burden for the animal. But if you're putting it on there because the animal, the udders are filled with milk, and you don't want to lose a drop of milk, and if the animals are walking outside, could be something will drip out. So you put an accessory to collect the milk, that is considered a burden. That is the third opinion. So says the Gemara, if we learn, Rav says, halacha ke Rabbi Yehuda, which is this last opinion, liyabesh muter, right? That's what we had in the Mishnah, and lechalev aser. Shmuel, Almar halacha ke Rabbi Yossi, Shmuel is more machmir, and he paskin like Rabbi Yossi that it never, this tsururais, this tyings, whatever was used, whether it was a material, whether it was a chain, whatever they used to tie may never be left on the animal if it's going outside. Okay. That the machlekes Rav and Shmuel wasn't referring directly to the Mishnah, whether we paskin like this Tana or like that Tana, but Rav said clear, liyabish muter v'lo lechalev, and Shmuel says echad zeh ve'echad zeh aser, which is really the same thing. L'may nafkamina. So Tosfos beautifully explains, second Tosfos in the Amid, is that we had the Mishnah the way we have our Mishnah, but there was another girsa that had the three Tanoim, Tanakama, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, but each one said something else. So when you go ahead, if you have both of these versions, then Shmuel, Rav and Shmuel wouldn't have said we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda or we paskin like Rabbi Yossi, because you wouldn't even know what Rabbi Yehuda says. So that was the second Ikademasni law. They knew that there's a machloikas, which Tana said what. So Rav, not to have people confused, Shmuel, not to confuse people, said clearly what they're paskening like. Now there's yet a third version. The Ikademasni law, that this machloikas Rav and Shmuel was said regarding the following Braisa. And you'll see that it's different than what we learned until now. What state in Braisa? It says in the Braisa, Izim yoitzis tzururis liyabesh avaloi lechalev. This is what we had in our Mishnah, the Shita of Rebbe Yehuda. Weiter says in the Braisa, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Meseira Amru, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Meseira, we say, Kach halach. Theoretically, that's the halacha. But Aval, mi mephis, who mephis literally means a lottery, like you're guessing. Who would ever know Ezel Yabish Ezel Chalev? You're right, theoretically, if it's Liyabish, it's okay. But no one will know. And it could be that someone put it on Lechalev, which is Aser, right? And no one will know that he's doing something prohibited. Or someone put it on Liyabish. The observer will think he put it on Lechalev, and then he'll do the same thing. So because of that, because it's difficult to differentiate why you put on these tzururos. Why did you tie the udders? Not to create confusion, not to give the wrong impression, not for people to learn from someone who did something be'emes that's mutter, but they will think that they did something that's asur, and they might copy. So therefore, b'poyel mamish echad zeh ve'echad zeh asur. And Amar Shmuel, Amri law, the first white line now, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, halacha like Yehuda ben Meseira. And the third place says, that's a big nafkamina. If until now we learned that Shmuel paskin like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, echad zeh ve'echad zeh asur. According to this third version, Shmuel is paskin like Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira. Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira only said the poil it's asur because there can be a confusion. But Tosfos says, what happens if you live in a place, if you live in a society that no one ties the udders lechalev? No one does. They only do it liyabesh. Liyabesh, Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira is saying that I'm waiting to Rabbi Yehuda. Oh, it's this version. Shmuel is more lenient. It's also when a confusion can happen. What would happen if nowadays, right, in 2020, Tafshin Pei, what happens if now there's different ways of doing it? Now you could discern. If you could discern, again, Shmuel, according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida, if Shmuel paskin like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida theoretically is saying we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, so Shmuel will be more lenient. And now we conclude that Kiyasar Avin, when it came from Eretz Yisrael, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, that the halach is like the Tanakh, the most lenient. The Tanakh in our Mishnah says that any type of tying of the udders of goats is allowed to remain on the animal when it walks outside. It's never considered a burden. Okay, says the Holy Mishnah. Ubamom eino yoitza. Right, so the Mishnah began, the first Mishnah in the Perek, Bameh, right? Bameh eino yoitza, Bameh eino yoitza. Now we're going to the eino yoitza. Lo yetze gamel b'mitul telis. A gamel is not allowed to go with a mitul telis. So Rashi here brings a few opinions. The second opinion in Rashi, the Yesh Mefarshim, that a mitul telis is a mardaas. A donkey we learned, a mardaas is okay, is okay. Oh, it's the shmate that goes under the saddle cloth. By a donkey, it's okay. Here, it's not okay. Why is it not okay? Didn't we learn that it's to warm up the animal? So the part is that by a camel, it can fall off easier. It falls off easier. And as we spoke out, that even when you have an article that theoretically is mutter because it's not a burden, there's another issue, which we'll learn more in the next Pedic, that if there is something that there's a certain level of chance, it's a higher chance that it's going to fall off. And when it falls off, it's possible that the owner won't right away put it back on, but will end up carrying it. Then you got a problem. Chazal said, don't put it lachatchila, because you might end up you violating chaytzah. That's the way Rashi learns in the Mitul Telis. And more in the Gemara. Another din, loy akut, loy ragul. An animal cannot go out with a shus rabban bound. There's a certain type of binding that's called akeda. From akeda sitzchak, and as we learn in the Gemara, it means a hand to a leg, or a forehand to a foreleg. Foreleg to the hind leg by the animal. That's called akut. And why would they do that? They didn't want the animal to run away, so they would tie it up. So why is it a problem? There's a double problem. The animal doesn't enjoy it. So for the animal, it's a burden. And also, if it's going to fall off the chain, you might end up carrying it. And ragul, habbled, is whoever's watching the video. So if you have the foreleg. So, if you remember in Chulin, there's really three parts to the leg, to the animal's leg. You take the lowest part and you bend it up in the natural bend, and then you would tie it together. So you would tie up. So what the animal, instead of having four legs, it only has three legs because the front leg became shorter. You didn't wound it, but this is also gimmicks that you did to make sure that the animal doesn't run away. It has a much harder time moving. For the animal, it's a burden. And also, if the chain falls off, you're going to end up carrying it. That's why you may not allow it to go outdoors. Again, not akut, not ragul. And the shiur kol habehemois, that this issue of akut and ragul is not only on a camel. Another din in the Mishnah, it was common that if you had many camels, so you would tie one camel to the other, camel one, camel two, camel three, and then the leader, the person, would only have to schlep the camel in the front. You're only grabbing onto one leash. We already learned in the beginning of the Pedic that a leash is okay. We'll learn more details here in this Amar again. We spoke about the Tosfos when we learned it a few daf ago. But here, a leash to one animal, but one animal connected to another or more, you may not lead the leader and schlep all the ones behind. Avol, every animal has to have its own leash. You can grab many leashes at the same time. That you can do. Avol machnes chavalim l'techiyadoim. So you have 5 animals. So each one has its separate leash. You grab all of them, and v'yimshech, you can pull it, you can lead it. But even here, there's another limitation. Don't wrap it around your hand. We'll see in the Gemara why not. You can't wrap it around your hand. Okay, let's begin. First of all, Gemara. Let's go with the second Shadanashi that we spoke out. The Mitotelis is the cloth saddle of a camel, a mardas of a camel. And the problem is it might fall off. And even if it's tied onto the tail, why would it tie it onto the tail when the animal goes down? It shouldn't slip off. So it's partially tied. It still might fall off. not enough of a justification. And if it's going to fall off, you might end up carrying it. That's both tied to the tail and to the hump, to the back and to the front, whether it's going up or down. In other words, the stronger the camel is, the stronger the mardas, this mitotelis is bound, then the less of a problem, the less of a chance it's going to fall. And indeed, you won't have an isur to go out with it, because in principle, it's to warm up an animal, and you're taking away tzad, and anything that's done to take away tzad from an animal, we learned, is permitted. If the person had this mitotelis, if the animal, a female gumel, had a placenta that was partially out of her body, first of all, the shilia is still considered part of her body. It's very painful if the mitotelis is tied to this shiliyasa. The camel will make sure that it doesn't walk in a way that will cause the mitotelis to fall off, because if the mitotelis will fall off, it's going to tug on this this placenta. It's going to put the animal in pain. And an animal does by nature, like we don't do anything that's going to cause us pain. So again, I know whenever it's affixed on the camel in a way where they're highly likely it's not going to fall off, then you are allowed to have it go out, because in principle, it's not called a burden. Amar Rav Yehuda, the Amoyed Rav Yehuda says, akud means, the way we explained in the Mishnah, akidas yad v'regel, that dafka the front and the back, not two hands together, not two legs together. It's the right front foreleg and the right hind leg, or the left and the left. But it's yad v'regel ki Yitzchak ben Avram, which is exactly what happened over there, which is why it's called akedas Yitzchak. Ragul teaches Rav Yehuda, shalayachu v'yad doi. The lower foreleg should not be bent up and tied al gabazuroi on the upper foreleg, like we explained. So the kasha will be on Rabbi Yehuda's taich of Akedah. It says in a brayso, akut means shtei yodayim or shtei raglayim, 2 hands and 2 feet, not a hand and a foot. Ragul is shelo yachav yad al gabazuroi v'yikshar. So the brayso clearly says other. How can Rabbi Yehuda argue with the brayso? Answers the Gemara, who? The Amar Rabbi Yehuda has another brayso. The Tanya akut means akitas yad viregel, the way Rabbi Yehuda said, or taka, the way we learned in the brayso, shtei yodayim or shtei raglayim, and ragul means shelo yachav yod al gabazuroi v'yikshar. The Gemara is not happy with this, because if Rabbi Yehuda would have had this brayso as his source, then he would not have the right to limit it to only one of the 2 interpretations of the brayso. The brayso gives 2 taichs and 2 akut. So the Gemara vakate lidami bishleim reisham yad v'regel seifa by ragul, it fits nicha, but mitziyas kasha. And Rabbi Yehuda would have to speak out his source. Why would he only speak out 50%? Because he learned another brayso. Elohuda amar kehaitana. Akut means akidas yad v'regel Yitzchak ben Avram, and ragul means shelo yachuv yadei al zeroi v'yikshar. Okay. Then the Mishnah said, Lo yishar gemalim, don't have camels tied to each other. And you're only pulling the lead camel. You're not allowed to do that. Why not? My tama. Chinga means advance. Chinga is a word that's used to describe a market. A market is a place where it looks like everyone to a market. People are going from this table to that table to this to that. They're going around in a circle. It's called a dance, a market. Because normally when people will sell camels, they would go out leading many camels together. Since it looks like you're going to a market and making commerce, selling and buying, as we'll learn later, is asur, right? Mekach memkar is asur on Shabbos because gezeirim ederabanan, you might end up writing a document, a shtar. So not to give that appearance, you can't have one tied to the other. But if you want to go at one time, walk your 20 camels at the same time, gesund hate, but have in your hand 20 leashes, avol machnis, but you can't wrap it around your hand. Why not? That you cannot wrap it around your hand. The reason why it's a problem is not because of halach and el Shabbos, elli and kalayim. There's a kalayim issue. Now, my friends, there's many types of kalayim, right? When you hear kalayim, the Havamina of the Gemara is that just like it says in Pashas Kiseitze, loisachrosh b'shoir u'b'chamor yachtov. So the Havamina is that just like you can't have 2 different types of animals schlepping or plowing together, you cannot have a person and an animal doing work together. That's the Havamina. So if I'm going to tie the rope, the leash around my hand, then it's like then it's going to look like I'm going to be working with them together. It's me and the camel. That you can't do. The Gemara says it can be. Kalayim demai. Ilema kalayim the adam. Are you telling me that there's an isur? Shoyda nachamoid is taka kalayim. They can't plow together. But an adam with any animal is allowed to do work. V'hatanan adam mutarim kulam lachash v'limshach. Ella clarifies the Gemara that Ravashi was not speaking about what's going to happen if one rope is wool and one rope is linen? Then you got yourself a problem. Then there's wool and linen, shatness. The Gemara is not happy. If you have two wool and linen and it's only tied together with one stitch, it's not called bound together. So who cares if it's wrapped around your hand? So the Gemara answers, if it's only wrapped, that's not called a strong binding, it's not called kalayim. But you might make a knot. Now, we're not even speaking about a kesher shel kayoma, which is not the topic here. No, you're making a kesher she'ena shel kayoma. But if you make some sort of knot, which is not, the knot in itself is not problematic, but if one will be wool, one will be linen, and it was common for people to have leashes made either out of wool or out of linen, that's why the Mishnah says, make sure you don't tie it and knot it in your hand. Amar Shmuel, and we learned this Tosfos above, that he quoted over here, that when you're working with a leash, as we mentioned, the leash and the collar is not considered it's an accessory of the animal, but only that which is needed for you to lead the animal. But if you have, there's the animal, then the person, the hand, and here, if the leash is going outside the hand, closer to the person, that if it's a tefach, you got a problem because you're carrying that leash. All right. Says, or the Rashi writes, it looks like you're carrying because it's not needed. It's not being used. It's on the other side of your hand. Today, Gemara, 1 second. We learned in the yeshiva of Shmuel that the isur of mechse kimasui, mechse, the dummy commission noisa, is only when it's 2 tefach. But less than 2 tefach is permitted. So why did Shmuel say 1 tefach? Here is a very important rule when you come to Paskin. Amar Abaya, the end of the Amid. Hashta the Amar Shmuel Tefach. And the Tanach the Shmuel Tefachayim, we learn that Shmuel Allah Chalamaisa Asal Ashma'inam. Really, if it's less than 2 tefach, it's not dummy Kemisha Noisa. No problem. So what are you going to tell? A person is going to ask you Allah Chalamaisa today in America. He has a dog and he's walking the dog on a leash and there's no aid of it. You're allowed to do it. You're going to tell a person, make sure that it's less than 2 tefach. If the person understands that he can go up until 1.9, he's going to do 2. He's going to do a little bit more. But sometimes you have to add. You tell a yid, you got to make sure there's no tefach sticking out. So now you gave yourself room that even if this person went a little bit more on what you told him, he's still really within the halachic permissibility. Oh, it's really tefachayim is the isur. When someone asks Shmuel halacha l'maisa, he would say a tefach. Okay, daf nun daled amid base. I know there are many times in halacha that we don't take this approach. Dafka don't add, but sometimes this is also good to learn. There are times when it comes to shiurim, if you give the person the last year, the last moment, it's good to leave yourself some buffer. Okay, daf nun daled amid base. V'hatanyu b'vat sheyagbiyam and a karka tefach. We learned another din. We learned that it sounds like again, there's the dog in front of the leader, the person. The dog is the leader, Nabach. The person is running after his dog. And then there's a leash in between them. And then the leash it says that the leash that goes out of the hand, as long as it is not within a tefach of the ground, you're good. That means it can go out of your hand many feet, many amas. A person is 3 amas tall. It can go out 2.9 amas. As long as it's it should be higher a tefach. So the Gemara says, no, kitanya hi, that's another din. Be out of your hand, really tefachayim. Shmuel paskin tefach. But there's something else between the person and the behemoth. You can't have the leash sag down near the ground. Between the person and the animal. That, in other words, the leash has to go straight. If the leash is going to sag down to the ground, then again, it looks like that part of the leash is not to guide the animal. It's not needed. And if it's not needed, then even if it's considered an accessory of the animal, anything that's not needed is called a masui of the animal, a burden to the animal. You're violating shvisas behemtoi. And again, both of these issues is only when there's no eruv. If there's a good eruv and you're using the eruv, then there's no problem with carrying altogether. Okay.
Quick question. The whole idea of the rope not falling, even a tefach of the ground, isn't that out of your control? The animal can control it by coming close to you.
I can say that today, not that Baruch Hashem, I don't have a pet, but you have these leashes that they're on like this. When the animal goes further, it stretches out. When the animal comes closer, automatically the leash rolls up. Huh?
Got it. Yeah. Got it.
I don't know what they had then. Okay. Next mission. Ein chamor yotzei b'mardas. Even though we said that a chamor can go out with the mardas, right, with the cloth under the saddle, but that's bisman she'ein kshuralei. Again, because if it's not kshuralei, it's going to fall, and if it's going to fall, you might end up carrying it. Likewise, if there is a bell, even though the bell is stopped up with a shmatim, it's not making noise. Making noise, as we learned above, is another problem. But we're not about making noise. Even though it's stopped up, but it may not go out. This is considered the problem. We'll see what the problem is. Nor can this chamor go out with a ladder at the side of its neck, as the Gemara will give more details as to why they would wear it. Nor with a strap on the leg. We're becoming shtickle animal experts. You cannot have your tarnagol go out with cords, nor with a strap on its legs. We'll see in the Gemara why people would do it and why it's usher. And the rams cannot go out ba'agalam. It has that wagonette that was put under their tails. Their tails sometimes were very fat, and if it would drag on the ground, the pebbles and the sticks and the thorns would tear into the tails. So they would go fancy. They would have a wagonette behind the ram just to lift up the tails. That is not allowed on Shabbos. And the ewes cannot go out with chanunais. We'll see in the Gemara what that means. Nor can a calf go out begimain. Again, we'll see in the Gemara what this means. Kupar is some sort of hedgehog skin that used to be put on the udders of a cow to make sure that leeches or other shiratzim don't suckle the milk out of the cow. That is something that you may not allow on the cow when it walks out. This we had on Daf Nun Beis Amud Aleph, right? There were straps that they put sometimes for shmira, sometimes linoi. Rav and Shmuel will review this in the Gemara soon, but whatever the Mishnah is talking about is something that may not be done on Shabbos. However, Rasi Shel Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the cow, he had one cow, the cow Elazar ben Azariah, it did go out with this with this strap in between its horns. However, it was Shaloi B'Ratzain Chachamim. It was against the Ratzain of the Chachamim. Okay. First of all, the Gemara is referring to the Reish. The Reish speaks about the Chamor. We learned in the beginning of the Perek that a Chamor could go out with a Mardas. Here the Mishnah is saying that it may not go out if it's not Keshura. Why? Kida Amara. And as we learned above, when we began the Sugi in the beginning, because it's going to fall off, or it might fall off. And if it's going to fall off, you might end up carrying it. Okay, if it has a bell, even though there's no mashmiya koil issue, still it may not carry it to the Rishus Harabim. Why? Not because it's a burden. Mishum de mechse command ozil lechinga, weiter chinga. You're going to the dance, you're going to the market, and mechse that you're going to do business, because that's normally when people would put bells around the necks of their animals. Nor with a ladder on its neck. Why would they put a ladder on the neck? It was a brace tied next to the animal's loya, animal's cheek. Why would they tie something around the cheek? Sometimes the animal has a wound, and sometimes it's going to try to scratch or bite into its wound, and it's going to wound it more. So you have to protect the animal from the animal in order for it not to scratch it with its teeth. But that's something that you may not put on the animal, even though you're doing it to protect it. So l'chayda here, and you're putting it for it not to be in pain. L'chayda it's because it might fall off, and you might end up carrying it. Right? A donkey cannot go with a strap on its leg. The strap was made in order to protect the animal from injuring itself. In other words, sometimes the feet of the animals connect against each other. So they would put this on the animal's legs. And here again, the fact that you're protecting the animal of tsar in itself is permitted, but these are items that might fall off, you might end up carrying it. You cannot be bound with, cannot have a cord around its leg. Why would people put on these cords? How do I know that this is my Tanach, not your Tanach? So the minig was like the luggage today. Many people put on the luggage, they put as a cord with a color, you think you know that the other guy didn't put on the same color. Same thing was with the Tanach, nothing changed. I don't want to exchange it with your Tanach. So everyone had their color, stupid cord, and that you cannot go over the Shusarab. With a strap. Why would they put it on a strap? The strap was really to make sure that they don't take large strides. It was between both of the legs of the Tanach. And as we learned in Bava Kama, right? Flying pebbles, right? Animals walk, and as they're walking, a pebble can knock out and it can break utensils. To prevent them from taking larger strides, which are going to make the pebbles fly further and break more utensils, they would bind up their legs. Why would they have an agala? So it says the Gemara, for their tail not to be bruised, because the tails of a zach, of a ram, is fat and it drags on the ground, and therefore it does get wounded. Then the Mishnah says that the rechelim that you use cannot go out chanunois. Vasmein chanunois Yosef Rav Acha bar Ula kamed Rav Chizda and Yosef Kamar. And Chavre, the Mishnah's Chachamim, this is a good klal to remember. Whenever the Gemara speaks about an Amoida sitting, and he's sitting, right? Yosef, Rav Acha bar Ula in front of Rav Chizda, and he's sitting. How many times? He's sitting already. So the Seder was like this, that the teacher was Rav Chizda. Rav Acha bar Ula was a Talmud. The Seder is that when a Talmud wants to ask a question, today the minig is he picks up his hand. The minig then is he stood up. And when the teacher would tell him you can ask your question, he would not ask it standing. The teacher is sitting here, standing. Then he would sit down. That's the pshat. He was sitting. He's a Talmud. He wanted to ask a question, so he stood up. And now that he was given the right to speak, so v'yosef v'ka Amar. Now what? Misha'a shegoyz is in Oisa, that from when you share the wool of these rechelim, so they can get cold. He's explaining what it means, chanunos. So toimnim la ezek b'shemen, you would immerse a compress, a hide, in oil, and then you would put the oil al padachta on the forehead of this buzzed rachel, kadesh leitztanen, for not to get cold. That's how that was the suggestion of Rav Acha bar Ula. So Amalei Rav Chizda tells us Talmud, you're telling me that people do that to their animals? In Cain or Sisa, you're making the rachel like Marukva. Marukva was the big leader, and he was wealthy. And Taka, if Marukva was cold, someone would put something on him, he shouldn't get cold. But you treat an animal the way you treat a person, can be the meaning of the Mishnah. Evidently, he did not live right in our day, right in the second before Mashiach, what people do to the animals. That you don't do that to an animal. The animal doesn't need all that. And here again, v'yosef v'ka'amar is b'shasha keras leiled, that when an animal is about to give birth, that animal is in greater dilemma. It's not just that it just got his hair shorn off. Here, you have to prepare 2 compresses that are soaked in oil. And you put one on the forehead of the animal and the other one on the womb of the animal in order for the animal to stay warm or for it to get warm. Now here, the Rebbe didn't oppose, but Omar Rav Nachman, in Cain, Osisa Yalta. Yalta, my friends, was Rav Nachman's wife. And as we know, she was very wealthy. He says, what, you're treating your Rachel the way Yalta is treated? 2 compresses. Completely rejects that. Elo and Afuna, you know what this Chanunais is? It's a wood. There's a wood that it comes from Krachayam, comes from overseas, comes from an island. And the name of the wood is Chanun, and you buy a chip of this wood. You put it in the nose of this Rachel, in order to make the animal sneeze. And why did you want your Rachel, your ewe, to sneeze? The Yiplu Darnei Roisha, for the worms that are stuck in the head should come out when the animal sneezes. Gewaldig. And the wood is called Chanun. So Chanuna is that little thing is stuck in the nose. So why does the Mishnah only speak about the Rechelim? What, males don't have worms stuck in their heads? So the Mishnah says, no, they don't. Because since males butt their heads one against the other, that already does the job. Shimon Nazira Amar, something similar. Yeah, it's about a wood that used to be inserted in the nostrils of the Rachel, but it's not from a fancy wood. It's a chip of rosin wood. Rosin wood is also expensive wood, but it's not that expensive. The Gemara says, that's why it says Chanunais. But according to the Rabbanan means all the other three Amirayim. Why is it called Chanunais? The vart is the you're doing something that you're doing it because you have Rachmanis on the keep it warm. They get the rismas, also the Rachmanis for the worms not to disturb the Rachel, and all of these things that are done for as Rachanim is called Chanunais, Chanun. And these are things that may not go out b'reshus harabim. Then the Mishnah says, "Ve'ein ha'egel yoytze b'gimayin." What's gimayin? Ma egel b'gimayin. Amar Afuna bar nira. Bar nira is a small yoke. Small yoke means when the animal is little, you want to train the animal to bend its head. So that was something that you're ready at trechinuch, and again, that's for sure something that the animal doesn't like, and therefore it's considered a burden. And on Shabbos, it can't go out with the Shus Harabim. Amar Rabbi Lazar, my mashma that the word gimayin, lishna the mechav, comes from the expression of bending. As it says in Yeshaya, halachoiv ka'agmain roishoi, but you're bending your head like a fish hook, like an agmain. This is really words of reprimand that we were fasting, and God tells the prophet to tell us that all of your fasting is only an external expression of tshuva. Just because you bent your head and you look like a fish hook, it doesn't mean that you're doing a real tshuva, but that's where you find the lashon here of gimain, agmain, and bending. All right, the first medium side line, the widest line is the last line of the Amid. A cow cannot go out with kupar. Why did they put a oira kupar? They didn't want for leeches, or Rashi says other shratzim to suckle the milk of a para, so they would cover its udders with a kupar. That may not be go. You can't go but a shusarabim with it. Nor with the strap between its horns. And we learned this on Daf Nun Bey. So the Gemara makes a kitzur in its review. Rav that holds whether you put the strap on to beautify the animal, whether you put on the strap even to schlep the animal, it's usur, as we explained, because a para can be led without the strap. So this is called a niterusa yeser, to access anything that's done in excess. That's the whole machlokes we had in the beginning of the Perek. Rav held is usur. It's always usur. Shmuel, that Lenoi is when it's usur. But L'shamer, that was the maskana that Shmuel paskin like Hanania, that Niterusi Yiseda is muter, taka muter. Whichever one it is, let's go Lenoi. And Rashi, we learned that Rashi in the beginning of the Perek, it's not that Lenoi is usur. Most people didn't beautify their cows by putting on this garment in between the horns. So if one chacham wants to do it to his cow, it's not darkei bekach, and therefore it's awesome. However, the Mishnah says that Parasai Shal Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah went out and the Shalai ben Chacham. The cow, what he had one cow. V'chad the para havile v'ha Amar Rav, or V'amdillah Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Today said Alfei Igle Have Maaser Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Meyadre kol shata v'shata, every single year, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah would give as meiser. This is the real meiser behema. From every 10 animals that grew in the season, you would give one. How many did he give? He gave 12,000. That means that every year he had a new 120 cattle. So he had so many animals. What, his one cow? Now, before we go on, Tosfos asks, the second to last Tosfos, which is the middle of the Amid, and he makes the Rabbeinu Tam, and he proved, first of all, he reminds us that we learned in Bechayres, I'm reading inside Tosfos, because just like you're not allowed to be magdish something today, right? A person is going to say, oh, I believe Mashiach is coming now, which we all do. I'm going to set aside a carbon right now. You're not allowed to do that because you might be moil behegdish. If you're going to give meiser, but now true meiser behema, we learned this a lot in Bechayres, you have to give it to the kohen. If it gets blemished, when it gets blemished, then it becomes property of the kohen, but the kohen might benefit from it before it gets blemished. Or the kohen might say, since anyways there's no Beis HaMikdash, I'm going to have hana anyway. So the Chachamim have the koyach, and they told us no more meiser behema. And Rabbeinu Tam makes a whole cheshbon, which is beautiful, that Max, he was 15 years old when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. And when the Gemara says the Lashon Kol shot every single year means when he was 13 and 14, doesn't fit. And Tosfos gives various answers. One of them is Mamash Gavaldik. And this answer is Gavaldik because it's going to give us context to what we're going to learn in a moment. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was an orphan before he was bar mitzvah. And there was a administrator, an apotropis, that was in charge of his estate. And the apotropis already gave that meiser every single year. I'm saying all this just to point out that the greatness of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and the expectations that Chachamim had of him, as we'll see in a moment, was when he was very young. So again, the kasha is, how can you say one cow? So Tana, we learned, now it wasn't his cow. Of course, he kept to what the Chachamim said. None of his cows went out with this ritzua shebein karnel. Loi shaloi hoisa, ela shal shchinasei hoisa. So he had a neighbor. His neighbor had one cow, and the neighbor's cow went out with this ritzua. And you know what? He didn't protest. The sin is his sin. And this opens up a big sugya that we'll just touch upon right now. And we open it up by saying that Rav and Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Chaviva must know, they learned. Before we go on, the Gemara interrupts. Whoopa! Says the Gemara, whenever you quote Rav Chanina, Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Chaviva, if it is Bekula the Seder Moyed, whenever it's in Seder, we're learning Seder Moyed, it's a mistake. Kolki Haizug, whenever you speak about despair, take out Rabbi Yochanan and put in Rabbi Yonasan. And how beautiful is it that the Gemara leaves both versions? So either what happened was Rab Chanina, Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Chaviva, or no, it was Rab Chanina, Rabbi Yonasan, and Rabbi Chaviva, and they said like this. This is the rule, my friends. Call me whoever has the power, whoever has the ability to protest about some wrongdoing in his household, and he doesn't protest, nispas al anshe besa, he will be punished together with them. He didn't sin, yeah, you should have protested. And the same logic goes further. If it is ba'anshe irai, if you could have effectively or maybe effectively protested against people in your city and you didn't, nispas al anshe irai, ubachol ha'olam kulai, nispais al kol ha'olam kulai. And we're going to have a shtickle gevura dike gemara. Well, let's just begin it. Amar of Papa. As we mentioned, that in Babel, the Goyim allowed the Yidden, allowed us to govern ourselves. And the head of our government is called the Reish Galusa, and he had a lot of power. So all of the Beit Reish Galusas, nispasu al kuli alma. If anyone does a sin in Babel, they will all get punished. Kihad the Amar Abchanina, Maidich Siv, Pashuk in Yeshaya, that Hashem b'mishpat yavai. God is going to come with justice, with judgment. With whom? Im ziknei amai and v'sarav. Now sarav means the rulers. Yeah, if the rulers do something wrong, God is going to judge them. The elders are just the elders. But im sarav chatu, if the ruler sinned, so then God should judge them. Dafnun hey, skenim achatu, the Sanhedrin, they're not the rulers. Elaima, you know why? Ala zakenim shalei michu b'sarim. And now this is just touching upon it. God willing, we'll learn tomorrow a lot more details. We have this in Tanya Perek Lamed Beis, but this is the Gemara in Shabbos Nun Hey, where, as we'll see, not only when you know you'll be effective, even if it says maybe you'll be effective, then mamish, it's extremely important to protest. And when you hear the word protest, mitzechel, it doesn't to protest in a way that there's more chance that they'll listen to you. So protesting from love, protesting with the positive, but protest. And as we'll see in the next sugya, that b'chlal there's a rule when God makes a promise for something good to happen, even if the reason of the promise is no longer here. Once God made a promise, he carries through with his promise for the good. If God forbid, says he'll do something not good, God will change his mind. If the reasons of the not good, we do tshuva, God takes away the gzeira. Normally the rule is that for good, God never retracts. We're going to learn a story, a very lengthy discussion between Midas Hadin and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, between the Midah of Gevurah and the Midah of Tiferes. However you learn the Midas over here, and the Sfiras over here. And in a certain event, the Gevurah won, and God committed to do something good, and God retracted. And the only reason why he retracted is because there was the people who could have protested. Really, their protest wouldn't have helped, but only God knows that. They maybe would have helped, and they should have done it, and they did it. And that's the beginning of the sugya. A lot more to be continued. Guys, the next daf, just to know, tomorrow we're learning at 8, and Monday morning we're learning at 7. Is mamish strong agadata.